Okay, everyone, I think we'll get started. We're going to record the session, so anybody else that joins us a bit later, we can send a recording of that session. And of course, anybody who's in attendance, we'll also publish that out to you as well. So if anything's piqued your interest and you want to come back and review it in your own leisure, then of course the WebEx recording will enable you to do so. Okay, so a big welcome to everybody to today's webinar about managing user licensing and device-based installs within License Dashboard. My name is David Chamberlain. I'm the General Manager at License Dashboard and the primary contributor to the functionality within our License Dashboard toolset. But just as a housekeeping, we placed everybody on mute to eliminate any background noise. But please feel free to use the chat facility during the course of the webinar should you have any queries. Our Marketing Manager Ben Eaglin is here on hand to highlight any questions that might come through during the course of the webinar. But of course, there will be a Q&A session at the end. It's only a brief webinar today. It shouldn't take more than 30 minutes. And it's going to be in the shape of just a few slides to set the scene and then a short demonstration. The slides are going to briefly cover who we are for those who don't know us, a little bit about our experience and toolset, before setting out what exactly we do mean about user-based licensing, why it's such a challenge, why we view it as a challenge, and then a demo of how we address it within licensing. And as before, we're going to finish it off with a Q&A session at the end, but that's only if there are any remaining questions. So, for anybody new to License Dashboard as an organisation, we are a sister company of a UK-based LSP called Phoenix Software, and we were formed back in 2004, primarily to sell our software asset management IP through a network of global resellers, partners, and SAM service providers. We also sell it directly to end users. We have many global on-premise customers, varying in size from 500 seats up to 175,000. And a network of partners throughout the world, so obviously here in the UK, in the Benelux, Canada, US, Australia, and New Zealand. We've recently signed up with a new partner in Israel. We have partners in the Nordics. And they deliver managed services to their clients using our platform. Behind the scenes, we have a growing team of 40 SAM experts. And they specialize and are qualified to deliver reviews for Microsoft, Oracle, IBM, SAP, all of the core risk vendors. We also have specialism in CAD software, SaaS, VMware. So these guys are available and on hand to offer advice and consultancy and expertise. The technology itself, it's got the highest accreditations. We were the first toolset to pass KPMG SAM tool assessment. And our sister company, using our technology as a platform, is only one of 2 UK managed service providers that are approved by Microsoft, and only one of 9 worldwide. And hot off the press, only this month we topped a Gartner poll for basic SAM functionality, heading off the likes of Flexera, Snow, Ericent, Aspera, Ivanti, ServiceNow, and Scalable. So to the platform. Well, the platform itself is designed to leverage the investment our customers have already made on existing infrastructure, so discovery tools, hardware asset management tools, etc. If you already have discovery capability, we look to harness that to reduce the cost of an additional discovery client on each device. This also avoids the financial implications of the effort to deploy additional clients and the negative impact of additional workload on assets and network traffic. So what does License Manager do when it gets that data, all of that raw inventory data, all of that raw hardware information? Well, including all technical versions, it's estimated that an organization with only 1,000 assets could have up to 200,000 unique applications statewide. License Manager's purpose is to cleanse and normalize that data to provide clarity and focus so that you can just look at those 200,000 products and determine which of the 400 or so that actually require a license and what kind of license. The other side of the compliance equation, which is obviously what am I allowed to deploy, requires similar effort. So this could be linking together several chains of renewals, For example, 3 or 4 purchasing rows may well link together to determine a single entitlement to deploy. Also requires the interpretation of product use rights, the duration of license, so how long am I allowed to use that software? Is there a term? Is it perpetual? Are there any associated grandfathering rights and metrics? If I have associated maintenance to a license, does it give me future upgrade rights, and how does that dynamically change? So all of this data goes into the central flagship product, License Manager, the SAM Specialist tool. So after this, License Manager itself is going to hold huge swathes of current and historic data, row after row, column after column of software, hardware, purchasing and compliance information. Might well be enhanced with RRPs. We might have some product categorization in there, or enriched with personal context such as purchasing boundaries or environment. As that data is hugely valuable to other systems, we make it accessible to those systems, things like CMDB, IT Service Management, products like ServiceNow via our API. And we also offer controlled access to the data through our visualization application, License Dashboard Portal. So just to list our License Dashboard family of products that make up the platform. So Dashboard Discovery we have as a product. Again, we are tool agnostic, but for clients without a discovery solution or gaps within their coverage estate, we have a simple, low-cost solution. We have Data Navigator, manages the connections to the various discovery sources to License Manager or our cloud service. License Manager itself is the SAM Consultants tool, our flagship product that receives, cleanses, normalizes, and contextualizes all of the license and usage information to provide current and historic compliance information. Presentation layer is License Dashboard Portal, providing controlled, and it's key that data is controlled, but simplified access to visualizations of the data in order to make decisions and judgments based upon the data held within LM. Of course, API is the system-to-system access to that enriched data, providing it from our on-premise or managed service deployments. So what is user-based licensing? What do we believe user-based licensing is? So it's the ability for a user to run software on a predefined number of assets. So why is it such a pain? Well, let's say you are a user with an Office 365 subscription and you have the equivalent version of Office installed 3 times, once on your laptop, once on your workstation, and the final time on your Surface or iPad. The Office 365 admin portal reports the subscription for that user, but your network discovery tool and license management tool is asking for 3 licenses for your device installs. That's the challenge, particularly in mixed environments of usage. If you think about MSDN or Visual Studio, where a developer can deploy a whole raft of products under the subscription to multiple devices where they're the primary user, of course there are certain restrictions that need to be in place. But to your discovery tool, these will look like full-blown deployments of SQL Exchange, Windows Server, and so on. We'll come to this later on, but think for a moment, how do you track which user is accessing which device? And whilst it should be straightforward, can you actually readily associate your primary username with the presented user subscription alias? It's key to differentiate those two. Primary user description with the description of a user in the software subscription. They aren't necessarily the same. So, must-haves for user-based licensing. To summarize, user-based licensing is an extremely cost-effective purchasing vehicle. It's only so if you have all of the necessary information to take advantage of the grants it gives. Otherwise, the understanding of your compliance, your surpluses, your effective usage of licenses, and the true return on your purchases is purely speculative and guesswork. In order for you to understand which of your physical deployments are licensed appropriately with an Office 365 subscription and not an on-premise license, you will need the following details. So, number 1, who are your subscribers? Number 2, on which devices are they the primary user and not a shared user? And number 3, what exact installs are permitted and on how many devices where they are the primary user? Understanding users is more complex than you think. In order to link everything together, a common naming convention is required so that the primary user description of an asset matches the license description of the subscription. There's a lot of options there, and it is key to differentiate those two. Everything has to have a common naming standard. Something like Active Directory is the ideal starting point, as it will detail you the active users against which you can verify assigned subscriptions. So Active Directory is going to give you all of your users. Office 365 will give you all of your subscriptions, and if you can verify which subscriptions aren't in Active Directory, you're going to be able to reharvest those subscriptions. They're assigned subscriptions that can be freed up and sent elsewhere. I think this slide illustrates the challenge of associating multiple user aliases to a single confirmed description. Huge requirement, even before looking to match with a primary user alias of an asset. So here at License Dashboard, in Active Directory, I'm simply David Space Chamberlain. In Office 365, I am Chamberlain DA at licensedashboard.com. In SAP, I might well be D Chamberlain. In Creative Cloud, I may well just be Dave_Chamberlain. But I need to reconcile all of these aliases to a confirmed description so that I can apply those rights to the deployments where I am the primary device user. So how do we capture a primary user? Again, this is not as straightforward as it seems. Some of the tools we connect to do this already. New connectors will pull this value through to LM. But if your tool doesn't do it, how do you currently track it? Do you have the ability to do it manually? If you do, is that manual enough to track any changes? So where a user is given somebody else's device. Are you able to track shared devices, shared users of devices? Can we use the last logged on user, excluding admin accounts as the primary user? Is that safe? Again, what about shared assets? Are you able to capture the most recent 20 logons, say, and apply a weighting to them to determine the primary user? And then, obviously, with that weighting, understand the degree of certainty in the degree of certainty in that calculation, and whether the device, in all likelihood, is a shared asset or should have an on-premise license for the physical install. But finally, what does that primary username look like, and is it the same common naming convention as the subscription? So again, huge challenges all around this area of naming convention. Once a user is linked to his or her subscriptions and devices, is it safe to create rules? It's then safe, to create rules that highlight where per device installs are covered, where the user has an appropriate subscription. Software estates are notoriously fluid. Assets can move from one user to another. Subscriptions can be quickly reassigned, unassigned, and the versions of products eligible to deploy change upon each new software release. So you need to have a process capable of matching that degree of dynamism. It's necessary to highlight the exact installs and versions that are covered by the subscription, and crucially on how many devices or compliance may be compromised. But enough talking, let's have a look at it in License Manager. So here within License Manager, and this has been available for some time, we are able to take through users from Active Directory, and we are also able to bring in users from other systems, as your Office 365, for example. And what License Manager does, it typically will capture some details and automatically map some subscription aliases based upon the data within Active Directory. So we can see here, Adam Green is visible in Active Directory, and we've also pulled through his details from Azure Office 365. So we've mapped the account name, Adam Green at polaris.co.uk, with Adam Green in Active Directory. If we look at another user, we can see here we've got Cindy Baker, and we've also got her Office 365 details that have come through. Now those haven't automatically matched because we don't have the user account details for Cindy Baker. We just have cindy-baker@polaris.co.uk. But within License Manager, we have the ability to resolve those unmatched user aliases. So we go to User Mapping, and we can see Cindy's name here. But I know her first name is all but the last two characters from the first part. I know her, she's the last two characters, and her last name is all but the last two characters from the first part. Now I can go ahead and preview all of that, and it will match it with all of my colleagues at polaris.co.uk. And it will leave anything else as unmatched. Now, if they aren't matched against Active Directory, then perhaps there is an issue with the naming convention, or perhaps these are unused subscriptions and they can be reassigned to other users. Either way, it's something that I would need to look at as a SAM consultant. I do know Bannister Emma has recently got married, and she's now Emma Taylor, so I can manually reassign that here within the system. So that's how we manage all of the users, and we map them to their user aliases. When it comes to the users of devices, the primary users of devices, we are able to take in the feed from discovery tools that can capture it. And we can see here that as a user David Chamberlain, a primary user David Chamberlain, I have these 4 machines. Now, currently, if I'm to do a SAM assessment, a SAM compliance assessment, this could potentially be asking for 4 on-premise Office Professional licenses. But as an end user, as David Chamberlain, I have an Office 365 subscription. So when we look into the software usage items now, when an Office 365 subscription comes in, it goes into this new subscriptions area of License Manager. And we can see here that we have one for Creative Cloud, a subscription has been found for that. We have one for Office 365 Planning 3, and we've got a Visual Studio Enterprise with MSDN subscription that's come through. What we can do here is create a rule for each of those subscriptions. Hopefully you can see that on your screen now. So what we do is we create a rule that says for each, where somebody is the primary user of a device, they have a subscription, it will cover them for these products on up to this many devices. Where Visual Studio is in place, on up to 10 devices, it will cover them for all of these products. And of course, we've got one for Creative Cloud as well. So that very simply, in the Assets workspace, if we just look for a user Chamberlain, see here I have an Office 365 Planning 3, and if we look at assets where I am the primary user, so LT 612, 614, 615, we can see what is my plan and what products, highlighted in pink, are covered under that subscription. So I won't be pulling or asking for a license because I'm the primary user of those assets. We have a developer called Mr. Nezes, and Akis has a Visual Studio with MSDN subscription. And you can see here when I click on that, it will report on all of the products where he is the primary user that has covered all of those deployments. My colleague Ben has 2 subscriptions. He's got a Creative Cloud subscription, and we can see all of the products covered under Ben's Creative Cloud subscription. If we click on the Creative Cloud subscription, we can see all of the components that are covered under that suite also. But he also has an Office 365 Planning 3, and we can see all of the products that are covered under that also. And that's it in a nutshell, really. That's user-based licensing. If I can just go back to the slide deck. What we're trying to point out is that once you have full knowledge of devices and subscriptions and a common naming standard for the users, you're then able to safely create subscription licensing rules to cover per device deployments. But that is only where a subscriber is the primary user of an asset. Utilizing that, device count thresholds can be set to ensure compliance is not compromised. You can understand which assigned subscriptions are actively being used or not, and free up any that aren't. It also empowers you to challenge the level of subscription required. For example, to down addition from E3 to E1, equivalent of 120 per annum per user, it's imperative to see which services are active in Active Directory federated services, but it's also crucial to see if Office Professional Plus is deployed locally. It will also enable you to report on usage by user. Of course, we've always been able to report by asset, but then you can link the two. You can report by both user and assets. And that's the end of the short demonstration today, 23 minutes, so it's a bit quicker than I thought. But we'd like to open up the floor to any questions. Happy to answer them, happy to go through anything again or demonstrate anything again.
Hi, Rashid from L6P Netherlands. I have a question. Can you hear me?
Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Regarding the import of Active Directory usage data, will it be able to filter accounts based on activity dates, inactivity rules, etc., or is it just based on connecting or mapping the name conventions?
It is exactly that. It's the last activity date. So what we want to provide is a constant against which everything can be checked. So we can customize the connector to run users that have been active in the last 30, 60, 90 days, so whatever is the preference. Recommendation is probably 90 days, just purely because we want that level of detail and that level of knowledge.
Exactly. And mapping the users, will be done manually as you showed before.
The mapping of the users is done automatically by the system wherever possible.
Where possible. So with the sequence between natural human beings and functional accounts, etc., that's something that can be done automatically, or is it something that we still have to do manually?
No, that's done as part of the connector. So the connector will exclude anything that's not human beings.
Okay, that's nice. Thank you.
But sorry if there's any background noise. It's just that we've got everybody unmuted, so just please bear that in mind. We've got something coming through on chat. It says, are you able to manage mobile phones and iPads with 4G? Yes, of course. Much depends on the discovery systems. So if you have an MDM or if you have Intune, for example, then of course we'll be able to connect and pull that data through also. And there's, what's that one, Ben? From where do you get? We've got one that says, where do you get the Office 365 subscription data? So we have a new connector via Microsoft Graph. Nice and straightforward, just give it the secret and code and it will pull through the levels of subscription, and all of those are recognized as software in the dictionary, and they come through very simply, very straightforward. Okay, there's another question coming through, a really good one actually, one that I should have maybe brought out. Are there any issues with having all of that user data in the system? I saw quite a few fields coming in from Active Directory. Yeah, of course, the connector by default will bring through all of those values, but likewise with every connector with License Manager or License Dashboard products, we're able to redact, anonymize. So if there is any data sensitivity issues, and I know we've got some multinationals on the webinar today, so if it's an important issue within your particular region, then yes, of course, we can redact or hide that information. From a GDPR perspective, Of course, you still have to be sensitive to the storage and removal of that data if your geolocation requires you to do so. But we can control what can go into the system, we can control what is displayed in the system, we can control what fields we can blank out values if sensitivity is an issue. That's all capable and able within the product. Okay, well, I think that brings us to virtually the top of the half hour. Thank you, everyone, for attending. Of course, call to action, if you want to have any more information, or if you want to set up a call with us individually, happy to do so. If you want to discuss any personal situations or any localized issues that you might think with capturing user data, of course, we can do that. As an action from the call, we will be sending out a link to a recording of the demonstration, so please feel free to review it at leisure. And of course, if that throws out any more conversations or queries, then please don't hesitate to get in touch with us. So thank you for that short presentation. I hope it was useful, and I wish you all a very good day.